Well, for me, human rights will always be about human dignity and human pride, which surrounds all of our being. Um, in Africa, they are fundamentally fought for because they are a result of an oppressive background where colonial Africa is coming from, the jails, the oppression, the repression that we suffer. But also in post-independent or post-colonial Africa, there has been a dramatic rise in human rights abuses in countries like Zimbabwe, where the regime polices what citizens do and limits the freedom of citizens. And in other countries, for instance, like Swaziland, culture is used as an oppressive tool to restrict fundamental human rights as well. In Malawi, the regime of President Bingu wa Mutharika again got into power based on some very, very amazing goodwill, but is also beginning to clamp down on human rights and restricting certain freedoms which are reminiscent of the colonial period. Robert Mugabe his record for human rights is also notorious. So if you're in a situation like that, what becomes of the role of the media and how information is consumed? It just means that the media have to be responsible about how they report, but they also have to be truthful. I think the truth is what we look up to the media for. Every day we seek that truth and we seek that protection from them to tell us picture perfect truths about the state of our living and the conditions within which we live. But a look at headlines such as these, which prove the attacks that human rights defenders suffer, ultimately leads to discussions or propositions by governments to shut down the media space, or if not outright shutting it down, to close it or to restrict the freedoms. Politicians don't want to show their hands that they are clean, oftentimes because they are dirty. But we just have to sensitize ourselves. We have to teach ourselves the importance of human rights. You do not know what to defend if you do not know the meaning of that which you stand for. So be it you stand for women's rights and you fight for women to be recognized in society, you have to know somehow that this is what you stand for, and this is your cause, this is your battle going into the future, because also that education, especially to children, is important when they grow up and are making certain decisions that may affect their political living. But also you have cases of racism and xenophobia. Again, human rights are about recognizing that dignity in other people and not doing all we can do to harm others, as it were. These pictures are from a xenophobia camp that was set up in South Africa in 2008, and it just goes to show that removing one from their house or from their place of comfort is a human right violation. But what about how we speak and think, our freedom of speech? Can this guy be arrested for saying what he's saying as he's begging for money in some streets? Can this artist be arrested for telling it like it is, as she is sensitizing other people about human rights. Can Comrade Fato, for instance, who is Zimbabwe's leading protest poet, fail to speak because his words may be deemed uncomfortable, or his words may be deemed unfavorable by a certain kind of regime? No, he cannot speak. But what we need, perhaps as a people, is to stand up together and recognize that any injury suffered or any harm that is done to one of us ultimately has a bearing on our humanity, and that is what we must protect. Whether we're fighting for women, whether we're fighting for children, we must just realize that there is something called solidarity, and in solidarity there is no wrong. We do no wrong in demanding our rights. We do no wrong in demanding that we are freed, in demanding that we have the right to speak truth to power. When it comes to the internet, though, in Africa and certainly in Southern Africa, there are key concerns about the direction where the internet is going, especially in the aftermath of what happened in Tunisia, in Egypt, and in Libya, where people use social media to mobilize the fall of the regimes there. Well, in Southern Africa, we are just grasping some of these tools, and the key going into the future will be lots of digital media training that is needed for our people, because access to such tools, access to computers, access to digital media remains a barrier to participation for many people. So we need an emphasis on training about digital security, how to be safe online, how to use the media that are coming up, and also to recognize that we have to bridge the age gap between young people who are tech savvy and the old people, to show them that this also matters.
My name is Sasha. I'm 18 years old and I live in South Africa.
Amazing.
All the repression that is done to protesters and journalists, it's irrational. It's been part of our history to document events. I mean, we have pictures from way back, centuries ago. Journalists are being killed for reporting important matters that the world should know about. Yesterday I took part in a silent protest march against sexual violence against women, and I had my mouth taped for 13 hours. No eating, no drinking, no speaking. And it was extremely hard, but it made me realize that this is exactly what's going on with regards to social media. Governments and nations are just restricting people, and so they cannot be heard. Their stories will never be public, and that's a burden on society. There is so much terror and social repression going on that it's important that as a people we should be fighting against.